Okay, Legacy Series number 6 update with the Roadstershop chassis underneath it. Roger, where are we at with this car?
Body's now welded to the chassis. The new firewall has been developed to attach the body to this chassis at the toe boards. We also developed a new position to mount a Tesla brake booster onto the firewall. And so we've got that stuff set up in the car. Most everything else is kind of set to go. So we're about ready to send this car to paint. We've been working on developing trying a dual track power window system in this car, because the part we found is most all the reproduction parts that you buy to make the power windows or even use the window stuff from the original Chevelles suck.
So let's go over there and you can show me more so our viewers can better understand where you're going with this.
So we've had a couple problems. One is that every 1,500 miles of really driving the car, you have to re-tighten or move or replace something, because all that Chinese crap that you buy for these cars just suck. And so we find that we're having to retune the doors every 1,500 miles or something, because something that wasn't rattling before is rattling again. And usually it's all these guides and tracks and things that are in there, plus the plastic wheels. They might last you to roll the windows up what seems like 5 times.
Old technology.
Well, old technology along with just subpar overseas manufacturing, poor materials. We've had window rollers go bad on 2 cars already, of just the little plastic window rollers that just suck. You lube them up, do all that, but they still suck. And so we've been trying to figure out, when you shut the doors with the windows down, we can get them when the cars are new to do that or when they're freshly adjusted, but after doing it a while, they just rattle and make some noises. So we tried the dual power window setup on another car, dual tracks, meaning there's a power track here and a power track here. You could probably integrate the video that shows the interior of the other door that shows what it looks like. And then we made dual tracks here that'll be guides.
Which explain, the factory stuff is more of a scissor.
The factory is more of a scissor, single pivot, and it just picks it up from one spot. And so it has all these like sliding felt things and sloppy plastic rollers, and there's just no way to really get all the noise out of it in general.
So someone that's looking at this, watching this video and your explanation, you're basically taking these doors and the window tracks and making them being modified to a newer version, what you find on a newer car.
Yeah, these are actually from a new Mustang. So we've taken them from a supplier that supplies them for Ford and have used them in here because of the way the dual track setups are and the links, that it works really well. And we're machining adapters to go from the Ford brackets to the curved glass you would buy that has those holes in it.
And another thing to correct is that, not correct, but just to let people know, we're talking now electric window mechanism, not just a hand crank, correct?
Not just a hand crank, no.
Yeah, this is going to be electric.
Yeah, they've all been electric, but we want to make them even quiet.
Yeah, I just wanted to help people that are viewing. In the Legacy Series Chevelles, you're doing electric window regulators with the old regular style scissor, but this is going to take it to the next level with dual track electric up and down windows.
Yeah, basically it's 4 tracks. There's 2 guide tracks and then 2 cable driven tracks that power the window up and down. And so we want to just make the windows where, another problem we've had is, so if you're going along and you crack the windows at 85, 90 miles an hour, you can't get them back up because the window sucks out as the air comes over this drip rail and sucks the window out. There's a few cars that we can get the windows back up, but sometimes they just won't do it because they're super sloppy. And so we want to alleviate that because we feel like you wouldn't have that in a new car.
Yeah, so when you shut the door, which I don't know how far up this window is right now, but something that he's talking about here is that this a lot of times will suck outwards on the outside of the weather stripping
out here. It'll pull out like that
and make it hard to actually seat in place, which then you get a gap over here and you get whistle noise, and just it just doesn't want to shut properly.
And it gets, like, I've had it too, where you pass a big truck going the other way in a crosswind and it'll suck the windows open.
Yeah.
Just because the stock ones are so flimsy. So we don't, at this point, we don't have any intentions of selling this to the public, because I feel like it would be a lot of work to explain how it's going to go in. We're trying it in this car. We can always go back to the scissor ones with what the modifications we've done. We had to trim this part out to allow that motor to be.
You're doing a lot of modification to the door carcass itself to make all this work.
Yeah, and we're also upgrading latches.
Okay.
So there's a few things we're adding that are starting in the number 6 car. And so we're looking at doing those parts and pieces. And so one of the ones we wanted to do is we want to do the Tesla booster, and we want to do the dual track windows. These will have the number 6 cars have the lower seats. The steering wheels are now lighter because we're
let's go over to since we're on the interior, let's go ahead and talk about this steering wheel here.
So this steering wheel is the same dimensions as the old steering wheel. What we did is in the old steering wheels, we were machining this tube from a solid piece. And now I've machined it from 2 halves, which cut the weight of the steering wheel down by 60%. So we went away from the 3-bolt adapter to a 6-bolt adapter. We lost a little bit of depth on the steering wheel, but everything else is still the same. The number 6 cars will also be starting with push button start, because a lot of guys have requested having a proximity sensor with a push button start. And so we're going to integrate that into this car. And this car is also where you're going to attempt to have a Holley ECU, which is a give and take between that and the GM ECU, because they both have pluses and minuses. But with the Holley ECU, our tuner says that he can integrate traction control. And this car with the 427 LT4 and the big Harrop blower is going to need some traction control.
So Gen 2 is coming a long ways with some even further modifications than what we were seeing on the Gen 1s.
Yes, even further. So we're winding up having to make our own pedal assembly to accommodate the Tesla brakes. Just different things like that that'll allow us to modulate the feel, whether a guy wants a really stiff pedal or whether a guy wants a super soft pedal. So there's a lot of things that will allow us to do differently.
Let's talk about the trunk here before we go up to the front and show the engine compartment. I know right now, currently, they were working on the inner wheel tubs, correct?
He just got the inner wheel tubs spot welded into the car, and he's putting in the trunk drop panels that will attach the frame to the floor of the car. And so these all get spot welded into the car from underneath, and he's getting ready to put the one here on the driver's side into the car.
And to clarify, all that is still factory on the outside?
That's all the factory out there where it's was previously blasted, I guess. So we made all these new brackets to mount the trunk hinges to the hinges that go to the mini tubs. And then some of the seams and things like that will all get cleaned up in the car as it gets reassembled.
And since the seats are out of it real quick, you can show the viewers the floor. And
so you can see here on the floor how it has the integrated front hook holes and the rear holes for the seats and the seat belts. There's a bung somewhere under here that the seat belts mount to, somewhere under this tape right here. And then there's another corresponding bolt somewhere else on the other side. Actually, the seat belt is integrated into the seat. And so this is all done before it's powder coated, before it's put into the car. All that stuff has been planned for.
And that accomplishes a lower ride height in the seat with also the electric seat mechanism still attached to the seat.
Yes, it puts the seat a couple inches lower than the factory seats would have been in your Chevelle, with power seats, with all of those things, with more ground clearance. And we also feel that this chassis is going to lower the center of gravity in the car, which is going to be drastic. We feel like there's no real way to quantify it yet until we get them done equally, but we feel like this car is going to be a little lighter because you're giving up some of that redundancy that happens with the bolt-on chassis and the other one and the floors that are in the car. So we feel like it's going to get rid of some of that redundancy. But from there, there's just a tremendous amount more room in the car.
So real quick, let's close this door real quick. And I want to, so for the Chevelle community that has seen plenty of Camaro, GTO Camaro seats, correct? They've seen them in these cars. They've been putting them in ever since, you know, people were getting their hands on them. And you can always tell without even the headrest on it, the top of the seat is usually really high inside the Chevelle. This is going to be using those same seats with the mechanism, still working mechanism, and it's going to be lower by about 2 inches from what the factory floor tub would be.
What the factory seat would have been.
Correct.
Yes, which is fairly thin with no power adjustment, because those tracks take up a good amount of additional height as well. Let alone you have a lot of cushion where you're not giving it up in comfort either, is that the seat's very comfortable no matter what your weight is.
We should try to get a stock car, stock seat, and try to get a, you know, roof point to the, you know, base of the seat to figure out like what that is compared to what these ones are, to kind of get a variance of.
I know a guy with a stock blue one.
I knew
he could probably measure from here to the top of the seat.
I'll go home and measure.
I know
car.
a guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know your wife has one.
Yeah.
So I've been wanting to do a green on green Chevelle for a while, and this is the green that we're looking at doing. This is a factory green, and then I found this corresponding green leather that I think we would do all the interior in. It is rainforest green. So we've been looking at doing all the seats, all the dash, everything that we would cover in the other cars in this other color green, to just create a green on green car with white stripes and Keystone wheels. You can include the rendering here if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm just trying to get this on camera, but it's kind of hard to see exactly with the sheen and all that. But that looks really nice.
I didn't like this green until you put it with that green.
Correct.
And get it out into other lights,
yeah,
where it looked, until you saw that, it kind of looked real icky.
Yeah, I think the shop lights really brighten it up too much and pale it out, but
yes,
in person you can, yeah.
That happens good with yellow wheels too.
Yeah. Roger gets a lot of feedback about the wheels that they've done on a previous Mustang, and that's where he's going.
And 35.
And the 35.
You would have thought I learned my lesson.
Yeah, the 35 also. All right, so open up the hood. Let's see what's underneath this thing.
So Don Hardy, 427 cubic inch LT4. It's got our coil covers on it that don't quite clear the supercharger, but it's got a giant hair up supercharger on it. It's got the new firewall in it with the Tesla brake booster location. We still need to put the clutch master in there. So I want to devise the pedal system first. The radiator top cover, a lot of those types of things are all in the car.
Is this the biggest blower that we've had on a Legacy series?
We thought that it was going to hit the hood and not clear.
I'm saying like displacement wise.
I don't know if this is, the one that's in Rob's is similar. I can't remember. This one might be a 20, one of them's a 2300, one of them's a 2600.
What are we thinking horsepower wise on, I know we're not into dynoing numbers and stuff like that, but just kind
of. This thing, I mean, the 427 itself made 650 on the dyno with a carburetor and no supercharger. So you're going from 360, what is it, 364 cubic inches to 427. So, I mean, you're adding another 15% cubic inches right there. And just doing that and then putting the blower on the top, this thing is going to be a beast.
Wow.
But our goal is really to make the bottom end torque. We want a torque monster that you can just roll through the gears. We're not super concerned with some big, I'm sure this thing is 1,000 horsepower combination if you want it, but we really want everything on the bottom end of it.
What are we doing for training?
This has a Bowler Blueprinted T56 with a tilt and twin disc clutch. Nice. And because of the manual transmission, we can run the Holley ECU that has the traction control. And so that is our intent, is to integrate the front speed sensors in the spindles and in the rear so that we can get traction control into this and then create some traction control tables in the Holley ECU.
Nice. This is going to be a beast.
Going to be a beast.
And just to bring everyone up to speed, chassis here is a collaboration between yourself, Roger, Ironworks, and Roadstershop. which is a independent front suspension, obviously, and then out back is a IRS. So instead of being a solid axle, these cars are independent rear suspension. And Roger, what's the significance of this rear setup here that is a little bit different than the past?
So this is the narrower track width that Roadstershop would sell, so that you don't have to have a minimal front lip spacing or a lot of back spacing wheel to go on the car. So I believe it's 53.5-inch width instead of 58, which just allows a more timeless appearing wheel.
So it's almost like narrowing the rear axle so it's not sticking out as much, and
Yes.
you're getting a deeper lip.
Just a deeper lip.
Just that classic,
Yep.
that classic muscle car.
And then the biggest feat is the GM differential in the middle and not a noisy Ford 9-inch.
Okay.
So this is a ZL1 differential that's in this car. So technically, with a LT4, a 10-speed, and this rear differential, it would be the same combination you'd have in a brand new ZL1 Camaro.
So we're pretty much doing everything GM now, except for the window regulators are going to come out of a Mustang, and then the Tesla booster.
And a Tesla booster. Just trying to make them the best we can.
Yep.
So,
well, what else are we? Where are we at with this car? I know there was a couple parts that we wanted to talk to the people that are following along that are now available on the website as well. The new steering wheel.
steering wheels are in stock now. We lightened those up, like I said, 60%, which is drastic. When you pick them up, you're like, man, this is much lighter. So here's one of the steering wheels that we've kind of developed for the Chevelles from the beginning. The clocking position is a little taller to give it a little bit more of a vintage vibe. These steering wheels have always had these little thumb rests, which are kind of nice just to rest your thumb on. I find I drive here or I drive here, something like that, where I've got the other part. Sometimes after a while, you just grab onto the bottom with one hand a little bit. We put this little notch in the top to just give you a place to put a little red indicator if you want to be race car, I guess. But when we made these before, these were solid chunks. This whole tube was machined from a solid chunk. There were two things that we noticed. One is when you get them in the sun, they get a little warm. They sit in the hot California sun or things like that. There's just a lot of aluminum and it takes a while to cool down. But we also noticed they just get a little heavier. And with the advent of all the carbon fiber and things in supercars, we really wanted to cut the weight down. So we started doing some design work to figure out what we could do to take these steering wheel rings and lighten them up. And so we've machined these to where these rings are like 25% of the original weight, because you can see how much lighter they are now. So the backside is meant to have the hidden bolts. There's two on each corner instead of one. There's alignment bolts that also align the steering wheel and hold it together in 3 spots. One here, one here, and one here. And then they bolt through the entire piece to attach the different mounting points of the steering wheel. It also has the D shape to it, which is kind of nice. Gives you a little bit more room getting in and out. But the biggest thing is to cut down on the weight and the amount of heat soak that would be in the steering wheel. And so in doing that, we've had a lot of requests for people who want to have these same steering wheels, and so we brought them to the market to do so. We've developed a horn ring, a push button center with a clear cap. This is just kind of our nondescript center cap. We have one that says Ironworks, if that was what your choice is. We also are going to offer an option to make these custom for you, however you would like that to be. So you can check these out on our website. They're currently on sale for $14.99 for a limited time.
Okay. And then we got mirrors.
So the other thing we've been doing, we've worked with Intech Auto and Troy over there for a long time. They've developed some mirrors to fix just the problems with the aftermarket parts that we run into. These have the big rectangular housing, but instead of the whole housing being the mirror, you can now adjust the inner workings of the mirror. So you can see how far you can physically move the mirror from side to side to get a huge range of motion. But the nice thing is that the air goes over these and it still maintains that factory kind of timeless classic look. But what happens is, so there's this little cap that goes on the front that has the adjustment screw. So you would kind of lock down the housing where you want it to be and then tighten that up with this cap because there's an Allen screw in the inside there. And so that Allen screw would be tight, and then you would finalize your adjustment with the mirror glass itself, and then put this back in there.
So you have 2 points of adjustment. You have this right here that tilts this
Yes.
actual.
You can see how loose this is.
Yeah.
There, and then you can see that you also have this adjustment.
So this provides a tremendous amount of adjustment if you have a car that has been possibly body worked and painted previously, and maybe the holes are off and the pitch is off on the factory mirror.
If your factory mirror is bolting to it, this one will bolt in place of it.
Right.
Most of the time.
Right.
And then this gives you, the biggest thing I like is I don't think I've ever had a replacement mirror, meaning from one of the OEM reproducers somewhere that has made this offshore, that every time you go to whatever 68 miles an hour, the mirror goes bloop and changes shape, and then you got to roll. If it's cold, or hot, you got to roll the window down if you have AC or not, and fix the mirror and don't do 68 again.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar, the factory ones, which we don't have one right here, but the factory one, the mirror's all integrated into this piece right here, and then right at this ball right
that's
here.
That's your only adjustment.
That's your adjustment. So what happens is you lose, it just not as stiff, the firmness goes away after time, and then the mirror.
After time?
Just
a week?
A week. And then the mirror wants to move around, and then you lose your adjustment. So it's.
Yeah, you're going down the road, and it goes bloop.
Yeah.
Bloop. Because it doesn't face you, or it's wants to straighten up. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
And so that's where they come in. And this is really what we've gone through from our legacy cars is, they're not cheap. They're not. And there's other cars that are, but neither are these mirrors. They're not cheap. I think they're $12.99 retail on them. But there's a ton of parts just to make all of this stuff happen, to machine this and polish it and machine the cap.
This isn't pot metal.
Like this
cast,
isn't just.
This isn't cast pot metal. This is machined.
Made in America, bald eagles, all that type of stuff that really makes for a quality piece. And as you can see there's another video we have where we talked about the wide open rallies that we just went on, and you can see the mirrors that weren't adjusted in 1,150 miles of. I mean, there were points in time where we were over 100 miles an hour. We went
bumpy
90
roads and shutting the door, and probably people walking by the vehicles and the possibility of them bumping into your mirror or whatever, and they didn't need to be adjusted.
I don't even know if you have to bump into the reproduction mirrors. The wind coming off your waist would probably
shut the door hard and they move.
Yes, yeah. Which is going to happen with the door rubber and everything, all the other things that come with these cars. And so these are just some of the products that we've been slowly bringing to market for different aspects of the Chevelle that can go to to somebody who's just not trying to build a Chevelle quite to the level of a legacy car. But you want to have some of these refinements where you're like, man, I'd really like to have that steering wheel, and I'd like it to not be heavy, and I'd like to have some really quality mirrors. We have a few other things that we're getting ready to develop of just different parts and pieces. I think we're about ready to bring the fog lights, which this is just an empty hole, but the fog lights we have in other cars, getting ready to bring those to market. Getting ready to bring some other parts and pieces that go to a more restoration-based Chevelle, or just a home builder's kind of Chevelle.
Yeah. So go to the website. It's always being updated. Currently right now, steering wheel, mirrors, lower valance for the bumper, which is all metal, not plastic.
All metal.
And a bunch of other interior pieces, front wheel wells, everything to be able to modify your Chevelle to the next level of what is lacking in the industry for availability. You have some options.
Just the low-hanging fruit.
Right.
The stuff that just isn't really adequate for what we want.
Sure.
The only guy that's happy with his factory overseas produced mirrors is the guy who doesn't drive it.
Or just doesn't know there's something other better.
I still don't think he's happy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but that's why NOS products are hard to find and expensive to get, because the original stuff from back then were built differently. They were
built differently, just
way
with better
more
materials
robust.
and
yeah. Okay. What else with this Chevelle?
That's really pretty much it. We should be going to the body shop here pretty soon, and everything else we've already developed. We already have an interior kit for this car. We've already got, these are not the inner fenders that go in here, but we've already set that stuff up, and just getting ready to probably make a new rendition on the dash. So to go with the push button start, do some of those before I do another run of machining the dashes. Hoping to have this car on the road by the end of the year.
Okay, so if anyone has questions about Legacy Series Chevelles or product, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Best way is just to email us on our website or info@ironworkspeedandcustom.com. You can DM us on the social media aspects. Yeah.
And I just want to throw out there, just so letting people know, YouTube is kind of hard to stay up on the comments, and there's not a messaging system on YouTube. So if you find us on YouTube watching this video and you want to get in touch with, you know, Roger and the shop, the best way is email and DM on social media, because it's just a better, efficient way. Unfortunately, YouTube just doesn't work that way. It's comments and that's about it. And those fall short. It's hard to keep up with them. So
with all the guys who are trying to guess whether the car is a 70 or 71, it really takes up a lot of our time.
yeah, and that's because you're using a 70 front end with dual headlights and quad headlights, 2 on each side, and then the bumpers. The preference for the Legacy Series is to run quad tail lights to match the front.
Yes.
Which is not everyone's, you know.
No, but Legacy Chevelle number 3 has a 70 rear bumper on it.
Yeah.
So it's all to what the customer wants. We've just tried to make them where they kind of stand out, where when you look at them, you're like, man, this thing's a little different than all the rest.
Okay. Thanks for watching, guys. Again, we appreciate everyone that's supporting the channel and the social media. Get a hold of us if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.